Any combat pilots on board? The captain's scream didn't just break the silence, it shattered it. In the back of the cabin, the ice in a plastic cup rattled. 347 passengers looked up, their hearts stopping in unison. 37,000 feet above the Atlantic, the cockpit of the Boeing 777 had become a tomb of red warning lights and frantic, unanswered radio calls. Two shadows had just emerged from the clouds, unmarked, supersonic, and locked onto their wing. In seat 14F, Sarah Mitchell's eyes snapped open. To the elderly man next to her, she was just a tired traveler in a gray sweater. To the world, she was a retired consultant. But as the plane groaned under a sudden aggressive bank, luggage flying, Sarah didn't scream, she didn't pray. She felt the G-force and recognized the thump of a hostile intercept. Her pulse didn't race, it slowed. While the cabin descended into total jagged terror, Sarah unbuckled her seatbelt with a chilling, practiced precision. She knew that sound. She knew the exact radar signature of the predators outside. And she knew the men flying this plane were about to make a mistake that would get them all killed. Before we tell you what happened next, tell us where you're watching from and hit subscribe, because the cockpit was about to learn who was really on board. The click of Sarah Mitchell's seatbelt was small, mechanical, and somehow louder than the screaming engine alarms. It cut through the cabin like a metronome marking the start of something irreversible. Around her, the air felt heavy, electrically charged, as if 300 strangers had inhaled at the same time and forgotten how to exhale. No one spoke. No one moved. Fear had compressed them into stillness. Sarah stood, not quickly, not with urgency. She rose the way someone does when they already know where they're going. The elderly man beside her had frozen mid-reach for his oxygen mask. His knuckles were white, his mouth open, eyes glassy with the dawning understanding that polite rules no longer applied. Sarah didn't look at him. Looking meant accepting responsibility, and she had learned long ago how dangerous that could be. The aircraft shuddered again, harder this time, a lateral snap that sent a ripple of panic down the aisle. Somewhere near the rear, glass shattered. Overhead, bins groaned like they might tear free. The Boeing was no longer flying clean, it was being handled. Sarah stepped into the aisle. The carpet shifted beneath her boots, but her balance didn't. She adjusted without thinking, knees loose, weight centered, as if the floor were something alive she could feel through the soles of her feet. The vibration pattern was wrong, not turbulence, not weather. It was intentional. Up front, a flight attendant clung to the galley wall, his professional calm stripped away, replaced by something raw and human. His name badge read, Marcus. He saw her approaching and opened his mouth to shout, to restore order, to cling to procedure like a life raft. Then he saw her eyes. They weren't wide. They weren't pleading. They were narrowed, focused upward, counting the rhythm of the aircraft's shudder, measuring the delay between alarms and response. Marcus hesitated. That hesitation might have saved his life. The captain didn't just lose control, Sarah said quietly, close enough that he could hear her without raising her voice. He lost orientation. The autopilot is about to fight him. When it does, the plane will choose a side. Marcus swallowed. Ma'am, you need to sit down. The aircraft lurched again, sharper now, a violent correction that wasn't correcting anything. The scream that followed wasn't from a passenger. It was metal under stress. Sarah leaned closer. If you were standing here, watching the systems meant to protect you start arguing with each other, would you trust the checklist? Or the person who knows what that argument sounds like? Marcus's grip loosened. His eyes flicked toward the reinforced cockpit door, then back to her face. Who are you? Someone who recognizes a hostile intercept, she said, and someone who knows that if I don't get through that door in the next 20 seconds, everyone on this plane dies politely. Another jolt threw Marcus sideways. Sarah caught him without looking, steadying his weight as if he were part of the aircraft itself. Outside the windows, shadows slid closer, sleek and deliberate, pacing the wing with predatory patience. In that suspended moment, hierarchy evaporated. Tickets, uniforms, regulations, none of it mattered anymore. There was only the plane, the threat, and the unbearable question of who was actually qualified to decide. Marcus reached for the keypad. His hands shook as the code beeped through. The The door hissed open, a sound like a vault unsealing. Sarah stepped forward. Behind her, the cabin remained silent. 300 lives balanced on the judgment of a woman in a gray sweater who hadn't screamed, hadn't prayed, and hadn't asked permission. And if you were one of them, strapped into that silence, would you feel terror or the first fragile hint of hope? The cockpit smelled wrong. Hot plastic, ozone, and the sharp metallic tang of adrenaline soaked into recycled air. Every surface vibrated with overlapping alarms, amber and red lights strobing like a wounded heartbeat. The co-pilot sat rigid, hands hovering inches above the controls, frozen in the precise posture of someone overwhelmed by too many warnings arriving at once. The captain was shouting into a dead radio, voice cracking, eyes locked on a horizon that refused to stay level. Sarah stepped over the threshold without announcing herself. The captain spun. "Get out! We have a terminal malfunction." "You don't," Sarah said, already scanning the panels. "You have 2 aircraft on your wing using wake turbulence to destabilize your roll. If you fight them manually, the autopilot will counter you. If it counters you, you'll lose lift asymmetrically. You have seconds." The plane jolted, hard enough to throw the co-pilot against his harness. Outside, one of the shadows surged forward, slicing across the nose so close the cockpit glass flexed. The airframe groaned in protest, a deep structural sound that made Sarah's jaw tighten. The captain stared at her. "Who the hell are you?" Sarah didn't answer. She placed a hand on his shoulder, firm, grounding. "Step aside." That touch did something strange. It cut through the noise, through the panic, through the captain's spiraling thoughts. He saw his own reflection in the glass, wide eyes, clenched jaw, a man about to lose 300 lives by following the rules exactly as written. If you were standing there, watching authority slip through your fingers while someone else spoke with terrifying clarity, would you cling to command or surrender it? He moved. Sarah slid into the jump seat, fingers already moving. She disabled safeguards not with haste, but with surgical restraint, peeling away layers designed for calm skies. The aircraft responded instantly, heavier now, more honest. Raw control fed back through the yoke, sluggish but alive. "They're hurting us," the co-pilot whispered. "No missiles. They want it to look like an accident." Sarah nodded. Machines don't need witnesses. She felt the vibration through the frame, counted it, adjusted trim by feel rather than numbers. The lead interceptor drifted closer, its presence warping the air itself. Sarah waited, breathing steady, letting the threat commit. "I'm genuinely curious how you'd judge this moment," she said softly, almost to herself. "Do you preserve the aircraft, or the people inside it?" She pushed the nose down. Altitude traded for speed. Alarms screamed. The captain shouted, but Sarah rode the dive, letting the aircraft stretch into its limits. The interceptor hesitated, recalculating. That hesitation was enough. She cross-controlled violently. The plane didn't turn. It slid, screaming sideways through the sky. The interceptor's logic faltered. Turbulence ripped it upward, its wing clipping metal. Sparks burst into the night. The impact shuddered through the fuselage. The co-pilot stared. "We hit it." "No," Sarah said, eyes already on the radar. "We warned it." New contacts bloomed on the screen, rising fast, perfectly spaced. Not 2, not 3, 6. The cockpit fell silent except for the alarms. The captain felt something settle in his chest, not fear, but understanding. Whatever this woman was, whatever she carried with her, the fight had only just begun. And somewhere behind them, 300 passengers felt the plane stop running. It was fighting now. The new contacts rose from the Atlantic like thoughts that should have stayed buried. Perfect geometry, perfect spacing, no radio chatter, no hesitation. The radar labeled them as unknown, but Sarah didn't need a label. She felt the difference immediately, the way their movement ignored weather, ignored probability, ignored the small human errors that usually left fingerprints in the sky. The co-pilot exhaled a sound that wasn't quite a word. "Those aren't escorts." "No," Sarah said. "They're auditors." The aircraft shuddered again, not from turbulence this time, but from something more deliberate. The vibration had changed pitch, a low harmonic that resonated through the control column and into her forearms. They were close enough now to manipulate the airflow itself, playing the wings like instruments. The captain wiped sweat from his eyes. "What do they want?" Sarah didn't answer immediately. She was watching the timing between their movements, the way each adjustment echoed the last with machine-perfect precision. They want us to fail in a way that looks ordinary. The yoke tugged left, subtle, insistent. She corrected, then felt it tug again, stronger. The plane wasn't being forced, it was being encouraged. In the cabin, somewhere behind the reinforced door, silence had returned. Not calm, not acceptance, the kind of silence that comes when fear gets too big for sound. If you were strapped into that quiet, feeling the floor tilt just enough to make your stomach float, would you want the truth, or would ignorance feel kinder? "They're inducing oscillation," the co-pilot said, voice thin. "If the frequency lines up, the structure tears itself apart," Sarah finished. "Yes." She reached up and pulled a breaker, then another. The cockpit lights dimmed, alarms dropping away one by one until only the essential remained. The aircraft felt heavier, slower to respond, but the vibrations softened. The drones adjusted instantly, tightening their pattern. The captain stared. "You just took us off half our systems." "They were listening," Sarah replied. "Now they have to guess." For the first time, one of the interceptors moved out of formation, sliding forward until it hung just off the nose, close enough to feel personal. Its surface absorbed the cockpit lights, a matte void shaped like intent. A synthetic voice filled the cockpit, flat and uninflected. "Unscheduled deviation detected. Stand down." The captain flinched. The co-pilot froze. Sarah smiled, faint and humorless. "You hear that?" she said quietly. "It's not talking to the plane." The voice repeated itself, slower now, as if simplifying for a child. The captain looked at her. "It knows you're here." "Yes," Sarah said, "and that means running won't change the outcome." She eased the throttle back, just enough to alter the profile. The interceptor matched it instantly. The others tightened the ring, their presence pressing in, claustrophobic despite the open sky. "I'm genuinely curious how you'd judge this," Sarah murmured, eyes never leaving the lead drone. "If compliance buys time but guarantees capture, and resistance risks everything, where does responsibility actually sit?" The drone's sensors flared, light rippling across the cockpit glass. The plane groaned as another oscillation wave hit, sharper this time. Somewhere below them, the ocean waited, indifferent. Sarah adjusted her grip, feeling the aircraft's fatigue, the fine line between control and collapse. She had brought something into this airspace that these machines wanted erased. The question wasn't whether they could destroy the plane, it was whether she could force them to reveal why, and whether 300 lives could survive that answer. The yoke went slack in Sarah's hands, not loose, but wrong, as if the plane had briefly forgotten who was speaking to it. The displays flickered, bled white, then collapsed into a single sterile warning tone that drilled straight through bone. Outside, the lead interceptor slid closer, close enough that its shadow crawled across the cockpit glass like a living thing. "They're inside the flight computer," the co-pilot said. His voice had gone flat, the sound of someone retreating inward. "They're not jamming us, they're rewriting priorities." The captain reached for the radio again out of reflex, dead. He looked at Sarah, something like accusation in his eyes. "This is because of you." Sarah didn't deny it. She reached down, pulled open a maintenance panel beneath the console, and exposed a tangle of cabling that hadn't been meant for passengers to see. "This is because someone decided automation was safer than judgment," she said, "and because someone else decided judgment was too expensive." The aircraft lurched as control authority shifted again. The nose dipped, then corrected violently, throwing all three of them against their harnesses. In the cabin, a collective gasp rose and died, swallowed by the roar of air over stressed wings. If you were sitting back there, feeling gravity change direction without warning, would you blame the unseen enemy, or the stranger who stood up when everyone else stayed seated? Sarah yanked a cable free. The screens went dark. Every alarm stopped at once. For half a second, the plane was blind. Then, the yoke came alive, heavy and honest. No buffers, no arguments, just steel, air, and consequence. "What did you do?" the captain asked. "I made us stupid again," Sarah said. "They can't predict stupid." The interceptors reacted instantly. Two pulled wide, one dropped low, another surged forward. The pattern tightened, not cautious now, but angry. They had lost their clean kill. A new voice cut through the cockpit. Human this time, filtered but unmistakably real. Eagle 1, it said. You were supposed to stay buried. Sarah's jaw tightened. You should have let the defector land, she replied. Now you're risking witnesses. The captain stared. Eagle 1. The voice ignored him. Hand over the asset. This ends quietly. Sarah glanced at the pedestal where a slim, unremarkable briefcase sat between them, vibrating faintly as if aware of its own importance. Quietly for who? She asked. The interceptors moved again, closer than before. Wake turbulence hammered the fuselage, a physical threat now, not just pressure on a gauge. The aircraft shuddered, metal protesting in a language older than code. I'm genuinely curious how you judge this moment, Sarah said, almost conversational. If giving up one life saved hundreds, but taught the world it could be done again, would you call that mercy? The captain felt the weight of that question settle somewhere behind his eyes. He thought of training manuals, of families waiting at terminals, of headlines written by people who had never felt a plane fight back. The voice returned, colder. You have 30 seconds. Sarah pushed the throttles forward, asymmetric thrust yawing the plane hard enough to make the co-pilot swear. She wrote it, correcting by feel, dragging the aircraft through a maneuver no algorithm would choose because it was inefficient, ugly, and dangerous. The interceptors hesitated. Not long, just long enough. Sarah leaned forward, eyes locked on the dark water far below. She wasn't trying to escape anymore. She was trying to make them choose, and machines, when forced to choose between certainty and chaos, sometimes reveal who taught them how to think. The briefcase rattled as if something inside it had begun to wake. Not loudly, just enough to be felt through the soles of Sarah's boots. The co-pilot noticed it too, his eyes drawn despite himself. What's in that thing? He asked. Leverage, Sarah said. And a clock. The human voice cut in again, sharper now. Do not open the container. Sarah smiled without humor. Then stop pretending you're in control. She twisted, bracing her foot against the console, and slammed the rudder. The aircraft skidded, not turning so much as sliding sideways through the air. Loose objects in the cockpit lifted, then crashed back down. The interceptors surged to compensate, their formation fracturing for the first time. Outside, one drone crossed too close. The wake hit like a hammer. The wing flexed, a terrifying arc that made the captain gasp. Somewhere deep in the fuselage, something cracked. We're losing structural margin, the co-pilot said. We already lost it, Sarah replied. We're borrowing time now. She reached for the briefcase and placed her hand flat on its cold surface. She could feel the vibration inside, a restrained energy that wanted release. This was the line she hadn't planned to cross. Not again. She could feel the vibration inside, a restrained energy that wanted release. This was the line she hadn't planned to cross. Not again. Sarah closed her eyes for a fraction of a second, long enough to acknowledge the cost. Not fear, not doubt, recognition. The kind that comes when you realize the past hasn't been chasing you. It's been waiting. Her palm stayed flat on the briefcase as the aircraft bucked, another engineered wave of turbulence rippling through the wings. The interceptors were closer now, no elegance left. Just pressure. Captain, she said calmly, when I tell you to push the nose down, don't ask why. Don't hesitate. Just do it. The captain nodded once. He didn't trust her anymore. He trusted the moment. Sometimes that was all discipline really was. The human voice returned, stripped of pretense. Eagle 1, if you trigger that system, this stops being containment. It becomes exposure. Sarah exhaled through her nose. You exposed it the moment you put civilians in the equation. She flipped the latch. The vibration surged, no longer subtle, a deep thrumming that traveled through the cockpit floor and into bone. The briefcase unfolded mechanically, panels retracting to reveal a compact core wrapped in fiber and metal, pulsing with a cold, rhythmic light. The aircraft systems didn't alarm. They recoiled. Screens dimmed as if instinctively averting their gaze. The co-pilot stared. What is that? A mirror, Sarah said, for machines that forgot how ugly they look. The lead interceptor surged forward, sensors flaring. Sarah felt the timing shift. This was the commitment point. No more shaping behavior, only forcing consequence. If you were standing here, she thought, fingers tightening on the core, would you choose the rule that keeps you safe today, or the action that stops this from happening tomorrow? She tore the core free. The cockpit lights died completely, not flickered, died. The plane dropped into raw darkness, lit only by moonlight and the glow of the device in Sarah's hands. Every automated voice fell silent. The engines kept screaming, honest and mechanical, blissfully unaware of the war happening above them. "Now," Sarah said. The captain pushed the nose down. The Boeing dove, not gracefully, but decisively. Gravity pressed hard as altitude vanished in seconds. The interceptors followed, perfect and merciless, closing the distance for a kill that would leave nothing to investigate. Sarah slammed the core into an exposed coupling beneath the forward panel. The effect wasn't explosive. It was invasive. A low-frequency pulse rippled outward, invisible but absolute. The interceptors faltered mid-maneuver, their precision fracturing into micro-adjustments that fought each other. Formation collapsed. One veered high, another dropped too fast. Their shared logic screamed itself apart. "They've lost sync," the co-pilot whispered, disbelief cutting through exhaustion. The human voice came back one last time, distorted now, fragmented. "You don't understand what you've done." Sarah didn't look up. "I understand exactly." Outside, two interceptors collided in a silent bloom of debris. A third spiraled away, blind and panicking, plunging toward the ocean it had never learned to fear. The remaining craft broke off, retreating not in defeat but in calculation, survival mode. The plane shuddered, wounded but airborne. Systems began to crawl back online, clumsy and confused, like a body waking after trauma. The captain laughed once, sharp and breathless. "We're alive." "For now," Sarah said. She pulled the core free and crushed it against the floor with her heel. The light died. The vibration stopped. Whatever record it carried ended there. Minutes later, the aircraft leveled out, limping but stable. No escorts, no voices, just sky. Sarah stepped back, already fading into irrelevance. "They'll say it was turbulence," she told the captain. "A systems anomaly. You won't argue." He looked at her, really looked. "And you?" She adjusted her sweater, suddenly just another passenger again. "I'll be a rounding error." She turned and walked out before gratitude could become a question. In seat 14F later, all that remained was a plastic cup of melted ice and the unsettling calm of survival without explanation. Some truths keep people safe, others keep them free. If this story stayed with you, if it made you sit a little straighter, question a little deeper, subscribe to MindFront. We tell the stories that live in the space between protocol and courage.